My name is Ariel Mercer, and I'm 32. I used to believe you could survive any family dinner if you learned to hold your breath long enough. Small talk is just shallow water. You can stand in it forever if you stop asking how cold it is. That night, the holiday table looked like a magazine spread my mother could have named Winter Light or Silver Quiet. Candles in polished holders reflected off crystal, and the roast carried that slow, confident smell of meat and thyme, like thyme itself had been seasoned and served. My sister, Elena, sat at the head of the table like she'd been painted there with a brush labeled owner. She liked the perspective. It let her see the rest of us as if she'd arranged us too. I didn't correct her. I never did. Not when she told the family group chat she could host again at her place, like she hadn't paid one utility bill. Not when she posted photos captioned, "Tradition lives here," as if here were hers. Silence had always been the smoothest path through a thorn hedge. My father lifted his glass with the sigh of a man about to deliver a performance he'd rehearsed since October. "To the one," he said, eyes flicking to me, who still hasn't quite figured out how to get her life together. The table chuckled like it was cued. Laughter as reflex, not reaction. Elena leaned in as the percussion. But at least she makes the rest of us feel better about our finances. I felt the clink of crystal in my bones. The word she hung like a tag pinned to my dress. A permanent label. A family-issued sticker. My mother's smile tried to stay neutral. It always did. Switzerland on a couch. I took a sip. The wine was florid and meaningful, the kind that pretends to be velvet while it burns. "To the one," I said softly, standing, "who just sold the vacation home you've been living in, rent-free." Sound has a way of falling off a cliff when a room's heart stops. Knives paused over plates. My father's smirk drained out like a sink. My sister's mouth became a door left ajar during a storm. Even the candles seemed to blink. I sat back down. No flourish. No extra words. I let the silence arrive and make itself a plate. You should know this wasn't sudden. People like to blame explosions on a spark they can point to, not the years of gas gathering in the corners. I had been the quiet pay person, the one who found the tax bills in my inbox, the contractor's reports in my voicemail, the roof patch estimates in February, and the off-season storm damage in April. There was a time I thought my silence was maturity. Turns out it was anesthesia. Elena recovered first. She always did. "You're joking," she said, half laughing, the top of her voice all glossy narrative. "Right?" "She's not," my mother whispered, eyes on me. There was a mother sense in that, the way geese can smell snow miles away. I didn't answer. I wanted the truth to take shape without me sculpting it. My father glanced at the head of the table, at Elena's place, and I watched the math happen behind his eyes. Ownership is such a pretty costume until someone asks for the receipt. A phone buzzed under the table, jittering against wood. Reflexively, I slid my hand into my pocket to stop mine. It wasn't mine. The vibration belonged to a message on Elena's screen that flashed quick, then hid. "House looks perfect. Hosting again?" The universe sometimes stages its own punchlines. We ate the main course the way people walk out of a theater after the power dies. Slow, confused, unwilling to admit they're still in the building. My father tried another toast, but it came out like a cough. My mother collected plates with the quiet of someone handling a dangerous animal. I stared at the candlesticks, at the way the light trembled. If you watch flame long enough, you can see its mind change. I thought about the listing photos I'd insisted on at odd angles so no friend of Elena's could just glance and think, "Oh, her house." I thought about the offer signed 3 weeks ago, the deposit already cooling in my account like a fever finally broken. I thought about every message I hadn't sent to avoid this exact scene, irony arriving like a polite guest who brought wine and a mirror. When we moved to dessert, my mother regained her voice with a practiced brightness. "Coffee?" she asked me first, a small treaty. I nodded. I'm not proud of how much I wanted the warmth in that cup to mean something larger. Elena pressed on. "If this is some kind of power play," she said, arranging a smirk she couldn't quite keep straight, "you're going to regret." "It was mine," I said. I kept my voice level. "Bought with my money. Maintained with my money. Every bill you never saw. Every repair you assumed just happened." She reached for the only rope she knows, image. "People think I own it," she said, as if public consensus could rewrite a deed. "I've been hosting there for years. My events." "My expenses," I said. My boyfriend, Ethan, cleared his throat softly beside me. Once, a little anchor. He hadn't spoken all night, and suddenly I remembered his hand in mine when I'd first told him I was preparing for this. When you tell the truth, he'd said, don't negotiate with it. He wasn't a spotlight kind of man. He was the kind that keeps the stage from collapsing. My father set his fork down with the sound men make when they're preparing to be disappointed by a woman. This is drastic, he said. Whatever your sister's oversteps have been, family, I said, isn't a coliseum where you feed one daughter to keep the others entertained. No one breathed. The word coliseum might have been too literary for that table, but it was the exact shape of things. I pictured the last holidays, the little cuts that didn't bleed until I got home, the jokes that lived on like splinters. The way Elena loved the house more as a backdrop than a shelter, how she'd stood on the deck and let the ocean wind arrange her hair like gratitude. My mother's eyes softened, then shuddered. She wanted a solution that cost nothing. There are no coupons for respect. Why not tell us, she asked finally, before you did this? Because I knew what would happen, I didn't say. Because you would ask me for mercy, you never showed me, and call it tradition. Because you would tell me to be the bigger person, a title I earned because it always meant being smaller. It's done, I said, weeks ago. Elena's knife scored the plate. You can undo a sale, she said, not believing her own sentence, if you care about this family at all. Ethan's hand found my knee under the table. It didn't ask. It promised. I breathed. The coffee will get cold, my mother said to no one and everyone, which was her way of trying to return us to a world where coffee was the biggest concern. She brought the cups. Mine steamed like a small, forgiving cloud. We held the rest of the evening together with thread and manners. At the door, when the goodbyes came, my father's hug landed on my shoulders like a verdict disguised as affection. My mother's hands lingered at my elbows, her eyes glassy with 1,000 unsentences. Elena didn't hug. She paused 3 feet away as if my air were dangerous, as if ownership could be contagious. Fix it, she said without moving her lips. I did, I said. Outside, their taillights stitched red across the street. The house, my old house, would sleep, but not for us. In the entryway mirror, I caught my reflection holding its ground. It looked like me, but steadier. Later, in my apartment, Ethan rested his head against mine while the kettle hummed. He could have said a dozen perfect things. He didn't. He poured the hot water, handed me the mug, and watched me choose the words I wanted to live with. Do you feel free? He asked quietly. I tasted the tea. It was a clean heat, like a sunrise you can drink. I feel accurate, I said. In the middle of the night, my phone lit the room with notifications I did not open. Group chat pings, missed calls, stacking like plates at a buffet where I was no longer the dish. I flipped the screen face down. On my bedside table, there's an old photo of Elena and me on the beach outside the vacation home, her hair in the wind, my shoulder freckled, both of us squinting against the sun like we didn't know anything yet. I studied our mouths. How easy it was then to smile without measuring who paid for the smile. In the morning, the air would be very quiet, and then it wouldn't be. People think the reveal is the end of a story. It isn't. It's the clean cut before you learn how deep the wound went. I turned off the lamp. The room went soft and dark. The truth, finally, could sleep in the bed with me. Morning arrived like an apology. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the radiator thinking. No group chat photo from Elena. No caption about cherishing little traditions over a perfectly ironed table runner. The absence of performance felt like a window opened after a storm. I made coffee and left my phone face down. When it rang the first time, I ignored it. By the 4th call, Elena, then Dad, then Mom, then unknown, I turned it off. I didn't need new lines to a script I'd already exited. Ethan patted out in bare feet, hair mussed, voice soft. You okay? I'm calibrated, I said. It was true. The ricochet of last night had settled into a clean line inside me. He kissed my temple and started slicing fruit like it was a prayer. By noon, the quiet had a weight to it, like a room waiting for its cue. At 2:15, someone knocked, sharp and impatient, 3 times. The kind of knock that wants to make the door flinch. I checked the peephole, Elena. She wore an oversized sweatshirt like she'd dragged it over panic. No makeup. Hair clipped up in a hurry. She slipped inside the second I opened the door, as if the hallway might contradict her story if she stood in it too long. You can't do this, she said. No greeting, just verdict. Tell me you're not doing this. It's already done, I said. Her eyes skimmed the apartment like she needed props, something to accuse, to fix, to control. You blindsided me, she said, pacing, palms up. Who does that to family? The person who's been paying for family in installments for years, I said. She blinked, mouth finding a polished smile that wobbled. Okay, you're upset. I get it. But this is nuclear. She gestured vaguely, as if the word hosting were too fragile to say out loud. People know that house is mine. People are not a deed office, I said. She laughed once, brittle. You're serious. Ethan came to the kitchen threshold and leaned, not intruding, just present. She clocked him, recalibrated. Did you tell her to do this? She said to him, as though a man must be the one whispering fire into a woman's ear. Ethan lifted an eyebrow. Ariel makes her own decisions, he said evenly. I recommend tea sometimes. Right, she said, dismissing him with a flick that used to work on boys in high school. Listen, she turned back to me, voice lowering into negotiation. I have things tied to that address. Bank accounts, a storage unit, my event vendor contracts, She swallowed. Invitations. People mail me there. My planner has everything routed to that zip code. If you cancel this, we can... I didn't cancel a thing. I sold my house, I said. Quietly, weeks ago. The deposit's already cleared. Closing is set. The buyer is not a concept. He's a person with a calendar and a lawyer. She stopped pacing. Weeks? I nodded. You didn't even warn me? Her voice broke a little on warn. I could have, started moving things, found a place, stopped. Her face went tight. I have guests coming next month for a fundraiser. I floated the date. People are excited. There's a caterer. Cancel it, I said. It came out kinder than she deserved. Or move it. You'll have to update your contracts anyway, and your mailing address, and the impression you've given people. She folded her arms around herself. I've built a scene there, she said, small now. It makes sense with what I do. It's my backdrop. Everything fits. It fit because I paid to keep it level, I said. Something in her eyes went glassy, then hard. You love punishing me. I considered the word. No. I love accurate accounting. You've been living there rent-free for 3 years, Elena. You used the address on bank documents. You hosted every other weekend. You hinted at a kitchen renovation to anyone who would listen. You have not paid a single utility bill, property tax, contractor fee, or storm repair. I have, without fanfare, because I didn't want the fight more than I wanted the respect. I let the next sentence slow itself. And last night, you still made me the punchline. That was Dad, she snapped, reflexive. It's his thing. You added the percussion, I said. She shifted tactics, eyebrows lifting in sisterly pity I knew too well. This is about your ego. You could have asked for gratitude, you know. You didn't have to go scorched earth. Gratitude is not a coupon I cash in for basic decency, I said. It's the base layer. You don't get to weaponize please and thank you retroactively. She tried to smile again and failed. You don't understand the optics. People will think people will think I lied. You did, I said simply. She stared at me like the sea had just receded to show the bones. We stood in it, the naked shape of our dynamic. How long had I let her image stand where my spine should have? What if, she said, softening into conspiracy, we just don't tell anyone? You let me keep it. On paper, it's yours. But No. Her jaw worked. You are jealous, she said, landing on the oldest nail in her toolbox. I finally have momentum. And you? No, I said again, because some words are medicine when repeated. This isn't about your momentum. It's about my boundary, which is not a wall, by the way. It's a fence with a gate I get to lock. Ethan exhaled, just loud enough that I knew he was proud of me. She looked at him again, calculating, then back at me. You know what this will do to Mom, she said. To Dad. They'll be humiliated. Everyone will ask what happened to the family home. It's cruel. What was cruel, I said, was letting me pay to keep a house standing so you could stand in it and say it was yours. She blew air through her nose, pacing again, faster now, striking furniture with her eyes like she wanted to bruise it. Who's the buyer? I didn't answer. I'll talk to him, she said. He'll understand. He's a stranger who made a legal purchase, I said. He doesn't owe you your image. You can undo a sale. You can't undo years of pretending, I said. And even if you could, I wouldn't. She went still. The fight left her posture the way a tide withdraws, light by light. I have nowhere to go, she said after a moment, almost to herself. Not right now. You have parents, I said. Friends. Money for hotel nights you were spending on florists. You have options. You just don't have mine. For a second, I thought she might cry. I braced for it, the way she'd make my living room a stage and force me into audience posture. Instead, she straightened. The mask slid back on with a professional click. Fine, she said. If you want a war, you'll get one. I don't want a war, I said. I want accuracy. Same thing, she said, heading for the door. Her hand paused on the knob. You think people will take your side? You're not likable when you're like this. I'm not auditioning, I said. She opened the door and froze as if remembering something important. She turned back. The fundraiser, she said, voice smaller again. It's for the shelter. Then move it, I said. Shelters exist in more than one zip code. She left without slamming the door. That's how I knew she was really scared. When the latch clicked, I felt something unspool in me. Not triumph, not relief. More like a muscle releasing after years of holding a position no body is meant to hold. Ethan came over. You didn't negotiate with the truth, he said, smiling a little. I rested my forehead against his chest. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. You didn't. We stood like that until my phone vibrated again. Dad, then Mom. I let them pass to voicemail, then turned it off entirely. We ate the fruit he'd cut. The edges had dried a little. Sweetness survives waiting. By early evening, the text started from numbers I recognized only by the shapes of their names. Heard something weird. You okay? Call me. Not taking sides, just want to hear yours. Is it true you're selling the beach place? Elena seemed... I put the phone in a drawer. The sun stretched itself along the buildings across from ours. The apartment got that gold it wears for 20 minutes on clear days. The kind of light that tells the truth kindly. I breathed it in. Ethan washed the dishes like the clink of ceramic was punctuation at the end of a paragraph. She's going to your parents, he said quietly. I know. And then she'll go to everyone else. I know. He paused, dish in hand, and looked at me. You ready for that? I'm ready to stop financing my own humiliation, I said. The rest is weather. He nodded, and in the nod was a vow. We can do weather. That night I slept with my phone off, a small rebellion that felt like a clean shirt. Dreams came slow and ordinary. No house, no ocean. Just the sound of someone knocking on a door in a hallway I didn't recognize. I woke before I answered it, and for a moment I believed that might be the end. It wasn't. At 11 the next morning, someone pounded on the door again. Heavier this time, a rhythm you learn in childhood. When I opened it, my parents stood there. Dad's jaw was a straight line. Mom's fingers clutched her purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. May we come in? My mother asked. The narrative war I thought had begun. They didn't even sit down before the air changed. My father moved toward the armchair like it owed him allegiance, setting his coat neatly over one side, adjusting his tie even though it was Saturday. My mother perched on the edge of the couch, back straight, purse still clutched in both hands. The same setup as every family discussion I'd survived since I was 15, the tribunal and the defendant. Ethan stood near the kitchen doorway again, quiet. He wasn't part of this family's script, and they didn't know what to do with the audience. My father cleared his throat. Your sister's in shock, he began, his voice already heavy with authority. Frankly, so are we. I'm sure, I said, keeping my tone even. He leaned forward. Selling the house was drastic, Ariel. Whatever frustrations you have with your sister, this wasn't the way. It wasn't drastic, I said. It was overdue. My mother tried to soften it. Honey, maybe you could have talked to us before doing something so permanent. That house, it's become part of the family. I smiled faintly. Really? Then when was the last time either of you paid for it? Silence. My father looked at the floor. My mother blinked, like I'd spoken in another language. I continued, gently but steady. The taxes, the repairs, the insurance, the storm damage, the roof, the repainting. Every single cent came from me, for years, and in return, every holiday I got a front row seat to being mocked. My father frowned, defaulting to his favorite lecture tone. Family helps each other. We've always believed in that. No, I said, leaning forward. You've always believed I should help everyone else, quietly, indefinitely, and with a smile. That's not helping. That's a contract no one else signed. He shifted, caught off guard. We didn't mean for you to feel unappreciated. You didn't mean for me to stop, I corrected. Mom finally spoke again, her voice low. Sweetheart, you've always been independent. We just thought you didn't mind helping out, since you're doing well. I didn't mind at first, I said, but when you let Elena stand in that house, take credit for it, call it hers, when you let her laugh at me, with you laughing too, that stopped being help. That became a habit. Yours, not mine. She looked down at her hands. We didn't realize. You did, I said softly. You just didn't want to admit what it cost. Ethan's quiet presence behind me was grounding. I could feel his eyes on me, not intervening, just steady. My father inhaled sharply. You've humiliated your sister. People are already talking. People will survive the truth, I said. So will she. He tapped his knee, jaw tightening. You can't just cut family off because of a few misunderstandings. This isn't a misunderstanding, Dad, I said. It's a boundary. You don't get to call it betrayal just because you don't like it. My mother swallowed. You could at least talk to her. She says she's willing to apologize. For what? I asked. For 3 years of living rent-free? Or for mocking me in front of you? Or for pretending I didn't exist unless I was footing a bill? Her eyes flickered, guilt and exhaustion in one motion. I'm not asking you to take sides, I said. Just to stop pretending everything she does is normal. It isn't. She crossed a line and I stopped letting her. My father stood up abruptly. Your sister's made mistakes, but she's still family. So am I said. You just keep forgetting that part. The words hit him harder than I expected. For a moment, he looked older, like someone had pulled the performance lighting off his face and left the man underneath. He tried one last pivot. What do you want us to do then? Apologize? No, I said. Just understand this. If being family means I have to keep paying for everyone else's comfort and pretending it doesn't hurt, then maybe I've been part of the wrong definition. My mother wiped under her eye with a tissue she pretended she didn't need. You're right, she whispered. We've taken advantage. We just didn't want to see it. Dad looked at her, then at me. For a second, something human flickered. He didn't apologize, but he didn't argue either. When they left, my father was the first to reach the door. My mother lingered behind him. She studied me, almost afraid to speak. You've changed, she said. No, I replied. I've stopped being quiet. She nodded slowly, then followed him out. The silence that filled the apartment after they left wasn't peaceful. It was raw, like air hitting a wound. Ethan came over and took my hand. That, he said quietly, was years overdue. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I think they're still hoping I'll undo it. They'll realize you meant it, he said. I hope so. But I knew Elena better than that. She wasn't the type to lose gracefully. When control slipped from her fingers, she didn't chase it. She detonated something else instead. I spent the rest of the evening tidying up my kitchen, needing something normal. By nightfall, I almost convinced myself things might calm down. But peace has a way of being temporary in families like mine. By the third day, the calls started. Not from my parents, but from people I hadn't spoken to in months. Old classmates, mutual friends, my realtor. And the careful tone in their voices told me everything I needed to know. Elena had started her campaign. It started with the kind of texts that pretend to be innocent. Hey, just checking in. Heard something strange. Are you okay? Or, Elena seemed upset. Did something happen? The ones that aren't really questions. They're probes. Little fishing lines cast into the silence. By day 3, it wasn't silence anymore. It was a rumor storm in slow motion. My realtor called first. He sounded hesitant, apologetic even. Ariel, I didn't want to bother you, but your sister showed up at one of my open houses this morning. My stomach sank. What? She cornered me in front of clients. Said I sold her property without her permission. Demanded to know who bought it. She even hinted she might sue. I had to have my assistant step in. I closed my eyes. I'm so sorry, Daniel. She doesn't have any legal claim. I know, he said, but she's making a scene. I thought you should be aware. By the time I hung up, 3 missed calls from my father blinked on my screen. Then a text from my mother. Please call your sister. She's not well. Ethan found me at the kitchen table, phone in hand, staring into space. He didn't ask. He already knew. She's escalating, I said quietly. She's spiraling, he corrected. Big difference. That night, I learned what spiraling looked like. A mutual acquaintance, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, showed up at my building's lobby. A woman in her 30s, perfectly put together, clutching a designer bag like it could shield her from gossip. She introduced herself quickly. I'm Nadia. I'm a friend of your sister's. I stayed polite. Okay. She told me her version, Nadia said, lowering her voice, but I wanted to hear yours before I decide what to believe. That phrasing, decide what to believe, told me everything. Her version? I asked. She said you blindsided her, Nadia said, that the house was a family property and you sold it out from under her. She said she invested in it, emotionally at least, and that now she has nowhere to go. She's telling people you've been unstable lately, that maybe you're acting out of resentment. Resentment. The word landed like a small insult dressed as concern. Did she mention, I asked evenly, that she's been living there rent-free for 3 years? That I paid every bill while being her punchline? Nadia's eyes widened. No. She also told people she owned it outright, I said. She froze. What? She even used it for her business address. She staged charity photos there. It was all part of her image. Nadia let out a low, embarrassed laugh. I've been to those events. She told everyone it was her property. My God. She rubbed her temple. I should have known. She always made it sound too perfect. I didn't smile. Don't be too hard on yourself. She's good at curating stories. I know, I said, but she'll try to take me with her first. By the weekend, my cousin forwarded a screenshot. Elena had posted a long rant on a local bulletin board. A certain family member betrayed me by selling my home to a stranger. The buyer stole my property. I'm considering legal action. She included the buyer's full name, his business, even his address. The comment section was already boiling, some defending her, some asking for proof, some pointing out how reckless it was to post personal info. I forwarded it to Daniel, my realtor. Within hours, he called back. The buyer's furious, he said. He's considering pressing charges if she doesn't take it down. I rubbed my forehead. Let him. Maybe that's the only language she understands. He exhaled. He might need you to testify that she has no ownership. Are you comfortable doing that? I am, I said. Send me whatever you need. That night, I sat on the balcony with Ethan. The city buzzed below, full of lives not orbiting mine. I feel like I'm in a play I didn't audition for, I said. He handed me tea. You're not in her play anymore. She's just performing alone now. Performing to who? Anyone still willing to clap? 2 days later, my mother called again. Her voice was tight, as if she'd been crying. Your sister came here, she said. She's hysterical. Said you lied, that you tricked her. We told her it wasn't your fault, but she's unraveling. Did you tell her to stop posting lies? I asked. She won't listen to us, Mom whispered. She keeps saying she'll fix everything herself. Mom, fixing means accepting. She's not ready to do that. There was silence then. She's not herself. No, Mom, I said softly. She finally is. The next evening, Daniel called again. Are you sitting down? What now? The buyer said she came to his office. My pulse spiked. You're kidding. She demanded he cancel the sale. When he refused, she started shouting that he stole her life. Security had to escort her out. I covered my eyes. God. It's not over, he said. He's filing a formal complaint. She crossed a line. By the third week, the dominoes started to fall. One of her event sponsors withdrew publicly, citing ethical concerns. A few mutual friends stopped replying to her messages. People weren't clapping anymore. Then, out of nowhere, she texted me. I went too far. Let's meet. Just us. Against Ethan's advice, I agreed. We met at a cafe halfway between our apartments. She looked worn down, mascara smudged, voice trembling from exhaustion. I know I messed up, she said. I panicked. You blindsided me, and I reacted badly. I'll delete the post, talk to the buyer, whatever it takes. Just please don't let this ruin us. Her eyes looked glassy, but I didn't see guilt. I saw damage control. I set my cup down. Elena, I'm not interested in revenge. But here's what has to happen if you want peace. She nodded quickly. Okay. No more favors. No living in anything I own. No lies about what's yours. And no public drama. She bit her lip. Fine. I mean it, I said. You break any of those rules, I walk away for good. She looked down. You've changed, she said, almost like a compliment and an insult at once. I smiled faintly. No, I've stopped letting you. For the first time in months, she didn't argue. She just whispered, okay, and left. When I got home, Ethan was waiting. How'd it go? She agreed to my terms, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You believe her? No, I said, but it's in writing, in my memory. I almost wished that had been the ending. But with Elena, endings were never the final act, just an intermission. Because a week later, the buyer called again, and what he said made my stomach turn cold. The buyer's voice came through the phone tight with irritation but laced with something else, disbelief. I wouldn't have believed it if my neighbors hadn't called the police, he said, but your sister was back at the property last night. I sat up straight. Back how? For what? She was seen peeking through the windows, trying the back door handle, even pulling at the shed latch. Neighbors got it on security footage. He paused. By the time officers arrived, she was gone, but her car was caught on another camera leaving the street. I pressed a hand against my chest. Was anything damaged? No, he said, but it's trespassing. I've filed a notice. She's banned from the property now. I wanted to let you know before you hear it elsewhere. Thank you, I said, my throat tightening. When I hung up, Ethan was already beside me. What happened? She went back, I whispered, to the house, at night. He didn't say anything for a moment, then quietly asked, Do you want me to call your dad? I shook my head. They'll hear soon enough. The police called them for verification. And they did, within hours. That night, my phone buzzed again, Dad's name lighting up the screen. For the first time in weeks, I answered. He didn't sound angry. He sounded tired. She's done, Ariel, he said. We can't cover for this anymore. I closed my eyes. I never asked you to. There was a pause. We failed both of you, he admitted. In different ways. I know, I said softly. I stopped needing you to fix it. After a long silence, he exhaled. I wish you'd told me how bad it got. You wouldn't have believed me back then. You're probably right, he said, voice cracking, but I do now. That was the closest he'd ever come to an apology. When the call ended, I set the phone down gently, as if afraid to break the fragile peace it left behind. Minutes later, a text from an unknown number came through. Just 3 words. You ruined me. I stared at it for a long time, then I deleted it. No reply, no reaction, no space for guilt that didn't belong to me. Days passed quietly. The police report moved forward, but the buyer decided not to press criminal charges, as long as she stayed away. He filed a restraining order instead, and it went through without objection. My mother texted once simply, She's safe, staying with a friend for now. We're giving her space. I thanked her and didn't ask for details. For the first time in months, my phone stayed silent for more than an hour, then 2, then a full day. Peace arrived not like a celebration, but like a room finally cleared of smoke. A month later, the seasons shifted. The ocean wind turned crisp, carrying that faint, salt-cold smell that used to fill the old beach house around this time. I still caught myself picturing it. The porch light, the echo of laughter through its wooden walls, the smell of coffee on those early mornings when I'd believed we were a family. Now it belonged to someone else, and that felt right. The buyer called again, this time just to thank me. She's left us alone, he said. I'm sorry you had to deal with all that. I smiled faintly. Don't be. It wasn't your fight. He paused. For what it's worth, most people wouldn't have handled it with your kind of restraint. I laughed softly. Most people would have learned earlier. He chuckled, then added, It's funny. Most folks don't stop paying for someone else's chaos until it ruins them. I used to be one of those people, I said. Now, my life is quieter. I work. I cook dinner with Ethan. We walk to the park on Sundays. Sometimes we talk about getting a place by the coast. Not the same one, not even close, but somewhere small, honest, and ours. My parents still keep their distance. My mother's messages have turned gentler, careful. My father's tone has lost its lectures. They don't mention Elena anymore, and I don't ask. As for my sister, word travels in fragments. She's been couch hopping, whispering about starting fresh, maybe moving to another city. I hope she does. I hope she finds something real, even if it means never seeing her again. Because selling that house wasn't just about money or property, it was about freedom. For years, I paid for everyone's comfort while being treated as the family flaw. I thought silence was strength. I thought endurance was love. Now I know better. Love without respect is servitude, and silence doesn't buy peace. It only rents it. This time the lease is over. I've stopped being the family's safety net. And finally, the air around me feels light enough to breathe.